Hi there, flower friends. It's Madonna from Eastside Flower Farm, Los Angeles, California, Zone 9. Today we're going to prune back our peonies. I love peonies. They're herbaceous perennial. They have the most beautiful, big, huge blooming flowers, but only for about 6 weeks during, I guess, April, maybe the first week or two of May. Too bad they don't last longer. But after they're done blooming, you want to leave the leaves on them because it still supports through photosynthesis the root that's growing underneath it. So you want to wait until fall, and then we're going to cut them all the way back to the ground, and you're going to actually dispose of the leaf because peonies are really prone to get fungal botrytis, fungal disease, and you do not want to leave those leaves on and let it get in the ground so that your next year's growth gets infected by it. So with that being said, after we cut it, I put it in a barrel and we burn it. We put it in our burn pit. I do not put it in our compost pile, and you shouldn't either, because then if there are any fungal spores on it, you could reintroduce it back to your garden somewhere else. So peonies, they last a long, long time. They are probably about 50-year plants. They'll last for about 50 years. So put them in your will and give them to your kids because they'll last that long. They are typically zones 3 through 8, and we are zone 9. I have not had a problem growing them, but what that means is we're a little bit warmer in the wintertime. They like to have a cold period. They like to have about 6 weeks of under 40 degrees in the wintertime. And sometimes we make that, sometimes we don't. They also like about 6 to 8 hours of sunshine. So I have a whole strip here. I have 19 planted just right here. And they're all sun all day. And then maybe in the in the summertime, they might about 6 o'clock get some shade, but they have gravel on either side of them and they're hot and they do wonderful. So I have not had a problem growing. I also have about 20 more over in the field in my cut flower garden, and they do really well for me. And my favorite peony is Sarah Bernhardt. So it's time to take them down. So all you're going to do is you're going to go cut them. You're going to cut them all the way back to the ground, because just like that, put them in your bucket, because next spring they will grow right back up. Now when you're pruning, you want to make sure you don't see any eyes, and eyes would be like little red tips on them. I don't see any on this one, but if you happen to see the little red tips popping up, you do not want to cut those, because that's getting ready for next year's growth. So here in our zone, you want to plant them. First of all, if you're ordering them, which you would be planting them now in the fall is the best time, they're going to come like in a big stocky root. They're going to have little red dots on them. Those are the eyes, and you want at least 3 to 5 eyes on them. You're going to plant the root, and you're only going to cover up like 1 to 2 inches of dirt on the very top of it. And for me, I only do about 1 inch of dirt on top, because they need to have that cold, and because we're not that cold, I want to get them as close to the top of the ground as possible so they do well, and mine have done really well. You don't want to plant them too deep. So what happens if you plant them, 3 inches over them, you're going to get a great big huge green bush and probably no flowers. So if you have a peony bush and it's beautiful but it's not getting any flower, you might want to think about digging it up and raising it, so that there's not that much soil, or dig the soil out around them. Now with that being said, because they are a 50-year perennial, you want to make sure that you have them planted in the right spot, because they do not like to be dug up and replanted, or transplanted. They do, however, if you want to, after 4, 5, 6 years, dig it up, split it, separate it, and grow more, you can do that. So they're just so beautiful. I love them in the garden, and I have all different colors. Sarah Bernhardt, like I said, be my favorite. I have some white ones. I just cut these back. I don't really do a lot of mulch either, because they like that cold. So I don't want to warm them up. And the mulch also, so if you're only supposed to have 1 to 2 inches of dirt on them and then you mulch them, that mulch also counts for depth. You know, the eyes are under here. That's actually going to add up. So you don't really want to mulch them. You want to keep them out so that they're nice and cold, closer to the surface. So I absolutely think that fall time is the best time to plant them. And don't plant them deep, 1 to 2 inches. The peonies, when they start blooming, the biggest question that I get is people say, oh, my peonies, they have ants all over them. You know, are the ants going to harm them? It is a happy marriage between peonies and ants. The peonies actually secrete like a nectar, and so it makes them real sticky, and it's only when the bulb's not open yet. So they create like this nectar on the outside petals, and then it gets sticky, and the ants love that. So they go in there and they feed off of all that the whole time. They do not harm the plant. Now, I have heard people say that the ants eating that sticky off is what helps the peony actually open. And I think that's just maybe a wives' tale passed down from somewhere, but the plant's naturally going to open up on its own anyway. So don't worry about the ants, because very rarely, once the peony is open, very rarely are you going to see ants on the inside, because they're not interested in the inside of the flower. They're just there for the outside. So if you go and you cut it and you want to stick it in your vase later, you know, and there's a few on there, just, you know, knock them off or dip it in water. You know, if it's in a bud form, it's not going to hurt them. You don't want to worry about that, because they're great for the peony. So I will go ahead and cut all these back today, and then actually in the springtime, when I actually have some harvesting to do, I will show you how to harvest it. So I hope if you have peonies, get out there, trim them all the way back down to the ground, leave them as exposed as you can, because remember, you do not want them deep and covered. You want to leave them only at most 2 inches covered, and make sure that you either bag up the leaves and throw them in the trash, or you burn them if you're able to burn. Definitely don't burn them if you're not in an area where you can. And do not compost those. So go out and prune your peonies. Thanks, guys.